There is a paradox at the heart of our lives. You see it every day. You feel it in the ache of your back and the exhaustion in your eyes. We are told that labor creates value and that hard work creates wealth. Yet, looking around the world, the hardest workers are often the poorest, while those who seem to do the least possess the most. It feels like a glitch in the Matrix, or a game where the rules change depending on who is rolling the dice. But what if I told you it isn't a glitch? What if the widening gap isn't an accident, but a mathematical certainty built into the very physics of money? Today, we aren't just complaining about the system, we are going to take it apart, gear by gear, to understand the invisible engine that ensures the rich don't just stay rich, they inevitably, mathematically, get richer. Sociologists call it the Matthew effect, named after a biblical verse, "For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from him who has not, even what he has will be taken away." In economics, this is known as a cumulative advantage. It's the snowball rolling down the hill. But to understand why the snowball grows, we have to look at the snow itself. Most of us are taught to trade time for money. We work an hour, we get paid for an hour away. This is a linear equation. But wealth doesn't operate on linear math. It operates on exponential math. The wealthy don't trade time, they trade capital. And unlike time, which is finite, we all only have 24 hours. Capital is theoretically infinite. When you detach your income from your clock, you step into a different dimension of physics entirely. Main Act 1, Assets versus Liabilities. Let's look at the first mechanic, the asset gap. When a typical worker gets paid, that money flows almost immediately out to expenses, rent, food, car payments. It's a water wheel that fills a bucket with a hole in the bottom. The rich, however, use their income to buy assets, things that put money back into their pocket. Stocks, real estate, bonds, intellectual property. Here's the kicker: assets inflate, wages usually do not keeping pace. When inflation hits, the price of bread goes up, hurting the consumer, but the price of the real estate and the stock market also goes up, helping the owner. Inflation is a tax on those who hold cash, but a subsidy for those who hold assets. If you are holding the cash, you are swimming upstream. If you own the river, the current carries you. Then comes the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. We've all heard the term, but few visualize its ferocity. Imagine folding a piece of paper. Fold it once, it's twice as thick. Fold it 42 times, and it would reach the moon. The wealthy are on fold number 30, where every new fold doubles a massive amount. The average person is on fold number 2. The gap between fold 30 isn't just large, it's astronomical. This is why the first million is the hardest, and the second is inevitable. Once a fortune reaches a critical mass, the interest generated annually often exceeds what the owner could physically spend. The money has no choice but to reinvest itself, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of growth that requires zero human effort to maintain. Now, let's talk about the tool that scares the poor but empowers the rich: debt. For most, debt is a chain: credit cards, student loans, consumer debt with high interest rates. It drags you down. For the wealthy, debt is a ladder. It's called leverage. If you have $100,000, you can buy $100,000 of stock. But if you have good credit and collateral, you can borrow $400,000 more and control $500,000 of stock. But if you have good credit and collateral, if the asset goes up 10%, you didn't make 10% on your money, you made 50%. They use good debt that is paid off by the tenant or the business cash flow to acquire assets. While the poor pay interest to the bank, the rich use the bank's money to generate returns that far outweigh the cost of borrowing. This leads us to the most controversial mechanic, the tax code. In almost every nation, labor is taxed higher than capital. If you work a job, you pay income tax before you see your money. If you sell a stock held for a year, you pay capital gains tax, which is significantly lower. But the ultra-rich go a step further. They don't sell. They use the buy, borrow, die strategy. They buy assets, they see them grow, and instead of selling and paying tax, they borrow against the assets to fund their lifestyle. Since debt is not income, it's tax-free. When they die, the tax basis resets for their heirs. It is a perfectly legal, infinite loop of tax avoidance that is simply inaccessible to someone living paycheck to paycheck. Beyond the math, there is the psychology of safety. This is the risk paradox. To get rich, you often have to take risks. But if you are poor, one failed risk means homelessness. You are walking a tightrope without a net. You play it safe because you have to. Without a net, you play it safe because you have to. The wealthy have a safety net. If a rich person invests in 10 startups and 9 go to zero, but one becomes the next Uber, they are set for life. They can afford brong. This capacity to absorb failure allows them to hunt for the massive asymmetrical returns that are invisible to the risk-averse. Being able to lose money is, ironically, one of the biggest advantages in making money. Finally, we cannot ignore the network effect. Information is the most valuable commodity on Earth, and it doesn't flow evenly. It flows through clusters. High-net-worth individuals exist in ecosystems where opportunities are shared before they hit the open market. The whisper of a merger, the private equity deal, the pre-IPO allocation, by the time an investment opportunity reaches the news, the real money has already been made. It's the difference between being at the table and being on the menu. This exclusivity insulates wealth, creating a gated community of opportunity where the admission ticket is a net worth that allows you to contribute to the next deal. So, is the game rigged? If by rigged, you mean designed to reward those who already hold the chips, then yes. It is a machine built on positive feedback loops. Assets fuel credit, credit buys more assets, assets lower tax burdens, and wealth grants access to better information. It is a closed loop. But understanding this isn't about fostering resentment, it's about clarity. You cannot win a game if you don't know the rules. The system punishes those who save cash and sell time, and it rewards those who acquire assets and utilize debt. The physics of this economy are indifferent to your feelings, but they are highly responsive to your strategy. You might not start with $1 million. You might not have a trust fund, but you can stop fighting the current. You can stop holding cash that dies to inflation. You can start buying your first small asset. You can educate yourself on tax incentives. You can build your own network. The first step to breaking the cycle of the poor getting poorer is to stop thinking like a laborer and start thinking like a capitalist. If you want to understand these mechanics deeper and learn how to build your own safety net, make sure you are subscribed. We break down the complex world of finance into stories that make sense. The machine is running. It's time to climb into the driver's seat.